The EFF leader, in fact, let me just pause for a moment and show you. On your screen, you're seeing breaking news, and it has to do with Limpopo and Mpumalanga declaration of the state of disaster in those provinces. The National Disaster Management Centre's decision follows a consultation with organs of state following the recent floods. So there you have it. It's something that the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs MEC in particular in Limpopo had been agitating for, saying that it will enable a more coordinated response supported by more resources being deployed. That has now happened. Declaration of a state of disaster in the two provinces. Right, let me move on to the story. The EFF leader, Julius Malema, is expected back in court this coming Friday, the 23rd of January, as the firearms case against him returns to the court roll. The case stems from a 2018 incident where Malema was filmed discharging a rifle during the EFF's 5th anniversary celebrations in the Eastern Cape. The video later went viral, prompting AfriForum to lay criminal charges against him. Malema was charged with the unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition, as well as discharging a weapon in a public space. He has since been convicted, while his former bodyguard was acquitted. Malema has denied that he fired a real firearm, maintaining throughout the trial that it was either a prop or toy gun, which he says he fired to energize the crowd. He maintains the case is politically motivated. For more on this, let's unpack it all. I'm joined by political analyst Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast and legal analyst Mpilontle Baloyi. Good afternoon to the both of you. Let me start with you in studio, Mpilontle, just to lay the groundwork as far as the legal process is concerned. Tell me what the prescripts are. Why is what Mr. Malema did a criminal offense, and how serious an offense is it?
Thank you so much, Tula Sizwe. It's good to be here. Yeah. Indeed, we sympathize with the communities of Mpumalanga and Limpopo under the circumstances and wish them safety. Mm-hmm. Look, we have to consider this matter in its entirety and its seriousness. Mm. And at the core of this, it's important that we understand what the charge is about and what offense has been committed. At the center of this is contravention of the Firearms Control Act. So the Firearms Controls Act controls and gives us prescripts as to conduct in and around firearms. The discharge of firearms, the use of firearms, the licensing of firearms. The list is endless. So we must understand that South Africa in itself has got a firearms problem. There are issues of unlicensed firearms, incidents of shootings that we hear of almost on a day-to-day basis. So to answer the question on the seriousness of the offense that has been committed, it's in and around the Firearms Control Act, as well as a proper consideration of what are the procedural steps to be followed in line with the Criminal Procedure Act. Yeah,
and carries a sentence, I understand, of up to 15 years in prison if a person, is sentenced to that. But just talk to me about the process we're about to go into. This is the mitigation and aggravation of sentence. What considerations come into play at this stage?
Well, the pre-sentencing procedure is there to actually assist the presiding officer to reach an equitable sentence, a sentence that fits this crime that has been committed, as well as fitting the accused, the offender themselves. So we're now beyond the trial. The conviction has now been granted. The next step then is the sentencing. So in that sentencing, there is pre-sentencing considerations that the presiding officer or the magistrate needs to take into account. Yeah. And it's not as automatic as, oh, okay, we now found you guilty, this is the sentence, 15 years, go to prison. So there was a 1969 matter of State versus Zinn. And to date, our courts rely on that in pre-sentencing proceedings. And it's called the Zinn Triad. So it's about 3 considerations that must be taken into account. The nature of the offense that has been committed, the circumstances of the accused, as well as the interests of society. Yeah. Now, what's also important to note, and Mr. Malema has been quite vocal about it since the time of the conviction. Here we're going to see social workers' reports, etc.
Yeah.
And what was very interesting there, or eye-catching, is a note that he speaks about publicly that notes that he has not shown remorse. And those are considerations that the court also take into account now when it comes to sentencing. The personal circumstances of the accused, whether they are or not a first-time offender, was there harm, the rehabilitation, etc. So it's all of those things. So we need to, we need to now break that down particularly. Then the state will move on with aggravating circumstances, because once now the state has secured a conviction, it follows that a befitting sentence follows that. So they will push for the maximum. And then that's the aggravation. So they aggravate.
That's why the tension will be between
and then the defense also now must come and mitigate and show that this is not as bad as it may be made out to be. Let's perhaps look for a lower or a more lenient sentence.
All right, let me bring Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast. Having laid that legal background, as Mpilontle has done for us so well, Professor Breakfast, do you think Julius Malema, at least politically, do you think he's worried?
Of course, he is, because he might be sent to jail, and that will have serious political implications, because he's the leader of the party. And what has tended to happen is that the ideological framing that holds the discourse of the party together is Marxism and Leninism. There are two subsets there. One is vanguardism. Two is the notion of democratic centralism. So the party has tended to do what I call political substitutionism, in the sense that you find that the rank and file, their mandate is being substituted by the interest of the party. So decision-making has tended to revolve around the personality of Julius Malema. So then if he loses this appeal, it will have a particular meaning in terms of the strategic direction of the party. I mean, I'm not sure if it is possible to give orders while you are in a prison. So definitely he is worried.
Yeah, but in terms of what he's saying about this having been politically motivated all along, what does that say about Professor Breakfast? By my recollection, very rarely has a tussle between him and AfriForum, especially the ones that have played out in the Equality Court, very rarely has it ended with AfriForum on the winning side. Of course, this is very different, because this is now a matter being led by the state, prosecuting on behalf of South Africans, as opposed to, between the two parties. But can Mr. Malema frame it successfully at this stage of the pre-sentencing, but also if it goes on appeal, that this is just a continuation of the opponents of our movement, opponents of our ideology, being AfriForum?
Well, if he makes that proposition that this case is politically inspired, he will have to prove that. Then the burden of proof rests with him in terms of proving that, which will not be easy, in my view. So I think I should leave that with the lawyer to assist in that regard.
Mpilontle, does politics count for anything in this? I don't imagine that it does, but I suppose you'll be able to explain better. Does it feature anywhere around, as you were talking about the Zin triad, the interests of society? Can it be snuck in there? That perhaps it's a political argument? Possibly not.
It should not be, and we must appreciate or keep in mind the sanctity of criminal proceedings. The other matters were not criminal matters. And as you correctly said, that the dominus litis, as they refer to it in Latin, the leader of this particular matter.
Yeah, the litigant that
it's the state
and dictates.
And that is within the prescripts of our criminal justice system. And in giving her judgment, the conviction, she did allude to the fact that this has got nothing to do with politics. And as I indicated, that also there is a pressure in light of everything that's happening in South Africa legally and in the criminal justice system. There is an urgent call to reinstate confidence in the public as a concern on criminal matters. So this will be considered plainly and should be considered particularly and only within the prescripts of the Criminal Procedure Act and the Firearms Control Act, which he has now contravened.
Yeah.
And of course, there are political implications, but it doesn't mean that these are political considerations. Now, the outcomes may have those political implications.
Let me stick with you for a moment, Mpilontle. Why am I getting the sense that whatever the sentence is, unless it's a slap on the wrist, really, and he's okay, and he's just like, okay, I'll pay, I don't know, 100,000 rand fine, and I'm okay, I'll move on. Whatever it is, I get a sense that an appeal is more than likely in these circumstances against both the conviction as well as the sentence.
Yes. To preface that, we must consider that the political implications here would be of such a nature that the Constitution indicates that if there's a custodial sentence of a particular amount of months, then it actually bears him or prevents him from occupying public office. That would be the biggest implication, because he would then cease to be a member of parliament. But what we must now consider is that an appeal is imminent. There's no way he'll be happy about this. And after now the sentence has been given, they will then proceed, I assume, and as he has already also publicly announced, that they're going to file for appeal for both the conviction and the sentence. And even if it's a slap on the wrist, as you say, that can still be taken on appeal. But remember, the appeal is not an automatic win.
Yes.
The fact that I'm going on appeal, the appeal court and the Criminal Procedure Act, and if you look at appeal proceedings, the whatever sentence is given, the Court of Appeal can actually has the power to change that and even
impose a higher sentence.
A higher one. So it has to be carefully considered.
We've seen that happen a couple of times.
We have.
So where you wish the person had left it at the slap on the wrist.
So you don't just get disgruntled and say, no, I'm going to go on appeal. It has to be meticulously calculated within the legal framework.
Professor Breakfast, given everything we are saying, what considerations should go into play now, particularly about the prospect of a Julius Malema possibly being sent to prison if the sentence is a custodial one come Friday? Given what we know about the levels of support that he has and just the energy, the political energy around him, and some of the recent experiences that we've lived through as a country.
So if he loses this appeal, I mean, I speak as a political analyst now. Obviously, I think he will take the matter up with another court up until it gets to the Constitutional Court. And I think after that, then there is no other room to maneuver. But in the final analysis, this will be a blow to him and to the party. I mean, Julius Malema is a very charismatic person. He articulates issues in a particular way and is one of the founding members of the party. So it will really be a blow in a big way if he loses, let's say, this week or in the final analysis.
But Professor Breakfast, let me stick with you again as a parting shot. I don't know if you've picked it up. There's a certain tone that he is taking. Of course, he's one of the deployees to the Judicial Service Commission on behalf of the EFF. And in recent months, he's really been speaking up in defense of judicial independence and the judiciary, even in the ad hoc committee, challenging some of the members there to say, don't just level allegations against the judiciary. Does that bring a factor that's quite different in the way that this is likely to play out politically, whatever the sentence is, in that, in a way, he's setting the tone perhaps for his followers on how to respond, whatever the outcome is, that he wants to play within those rules and challenge those rules and challenge whatever the outcome is on Friday?
I'm not sure if there is a correlation there, or if that correlation has led to causing him to be found guilty. I don't see the connection there, in my view, unless someone proves me that I'm wrong. Now, so it's easy to make allegations.
Sorry, Prof. Let me explain what I'm saying. Perhaps I wasn't as clear enough. I'm saying his attitude and his utterances as a leader of the party, and also someone who serves in the JSC, in the manner that they've come, certainly in the last few months, do they have the effect of diffusing some of the tension around whatever the sentence is, in terms of how it lands with his supporters?
Oh, in my view, of course not, because I mean, I'm just speaking now as a political analyst. I think cases are examined in the court of law on merit, not in relation to, I mean, you know, there's always a scope that the judge is going to look at in terms of what are the facts that are put before him or her. So I don't see the connection, in my view, regarding the posture of Malema from a particular forum and what is before the court of law.
Pilontle, very quickly for you, same question. Just your sense of his recent comments and stance around respect for the judiciary. Of course, the track record can be examined whether he has been consistent on that or not. But certainly in the last few months, how important is it for him to set a tone with his supporters about whatever the outcome is, whatever the sentence, because there's going to be a sentence one way or another, because the conviction has already happened. How important is it for him to set that tone around the judiciary, judicial processes, and whatever remedies are still available for him?
Thanks. Look, he has spoken quite a lot on judicial independence and for the need for the upholding of the rule of law. So here's a perfect example of himself now in the dock. He needs to now show that indeed he abides with the rule of law, and he himself is not above the law. So what's very key is that we want to see impartial adjudication, because that's one of the key elements of the judiciary and any presiding officer, impartial adjudication and the upholding of the rule of law, no matter who is before the court.
Yeah. All right, let's leave it there. Thank you for coming through. Mpilo Baloyi, Advocate Mpilo Baloyi, legal analyst, as well as Professor Ntsikelelo Breakfast, political analyst, dissecting what's still to come a bit later on in the week, the sentencing proceedings in the matter of Julius Malema.